Okay, so today we're looking at my ground force data. So that is, there's a little sensor reading under the mat which tells us the vertical force that I'm applying to the ground. And it's a source that we get a lot of our power from is the ground. We push against the ground pushes back, we generate energy, and then if we use that correctly, we can deliver that to the club. What we also look at here is the center of the pressure. So between my feet, there's a point where the pressure is centered, and you can see it's represented by a little white dot in the middle of this cross here. And you can see that it tells us if the weight's front to back here. So if we go back to my setup, this is with the pitching wedge, and so I just want to show you the difference of the sort of a short iron, medium iron, and a wood, just like we did earlier. So you can see I start a little bit left-sided with this short, so the center pressure is a little bit on my left foot to begin with, and then on the backswing, so it goes in the center of pressure moves in linear fashion. This means that I'm turning, but the pressure is sort of in between my feet, but it's moving a little bit to the right. So I'm still basically keeping my balance in the middle, even though I'm rotating. So that's good. You can see it's about 76/24. So pressure is sort of 76% on my right side. Probably a little, yeah, I mean that's a pretty good number. Maybe a tad too much, but not bad for a short iron. And then on the way through, what we see is I transfer nearly all of my pressure onto my front foot in a very linear fashion. So center pressure moves very much in a straight line, straight across. What you find with people with lots of compensation in their swing is that this juts about a lot, so that it moves forward, back, up and down. So that's the sort of the compensatory move. So you're not going to be transferring that energy to the club. So this is an interesting one to see people who sort of lack power or want to get more power. You'll see that they won't generally create too much pressure on the ground, and it won't be in a very linear fashion. So you can see then sort of it goes onto left side, and then it goes back a bit. So again, that's the thrusting and then going back. So again, this is sort of proven to me that, again, I get away with it pretty good, but actually there is a tendency for me to sort of fall back, so to go forward and then fall back. Okay, so here's the 7 iron. Again, so fairly central this time with the pressure. So when we take it away, so get nearly 100% of the pressure on the trail foot. It's probably too much on the trail foot for this particular club. And then on the way through, again, it's quite a linear trace straight across onto the front foot, which is great. And then it stays there pretty well this time. It's pretty good, and then backs up after the hit. Again, I'd prefer not to have to back up too much there, but that's it's a pretty good trace there. It's just, generally speaking, you probably not get it. Well, most good players wouldn't, with this mid iron, transfer as much pressure onto the right foot on the way back. So again, looking at my 3D data, when my body goes across and up, that's going to be putting a lot more of my mass on that right side. So it makes sense, and I'd expect when we talk about what we're going to improve, that all this stuff will start to look better because of that. And then finally, we're just going to look at a 3 wood. So here's the 3 wood. This is a slightly more interesting one, in that, again, start pretty centered, and then it goes back onto the right side. Again, 100% onto that right foot. This is pretty good for this type of club. We want this full transfer for this club. This is quite the interesting thing now. What they call this in the ground force data world, if there is one, is that it's called a Z pattern. So I don't intentionally do this, but this is just what I do. But what a lot of the longer hitters do is they go forward with the pressure onto the front, and then as they come down, it quickly goes back and forward again. So see the way the white thing's going back and forward? It's a little Z pattern, and this apparently gives us more power. And you know, we will examine, I will do more sort of research and study on why that is in future videos, but for now it's just an interesting observation that we will look at more closely in the end. But so that's really my patterns. Is actually I keep good control of my center pressure. My center pressure transfers quite well. I probably move a little bit too much on the right side, especially with my irons, and probably with all clubs really. But that makes sense based on the 3D stuff that we looked at last week. So next week we'll look at what we're going to do about it.